Well, hello there. Stacy Murphy here. Have you ever noticed that we often wait until things are falling apart before we become willing to believe something new? I certainly have done that. Have you? And then one day I flew. And when I say I flew, I'm not talking metaphorically, I'm talking literally. So recently, I had been doing a lot of psychokinesis training, and I'd been looking at the nature of reality. And what do I believe to be true about the nature of reality? And what do I believe to be true about my abilities? And I was thinking about the idea of what it would be like to fly. And I was thinking, well, it's a pretty big jump to think I could just leap and fly. And I was wondering, how do you train to fly? How do you go about that? And I was contemplating these things, and I was dog sitting. Dog sitting for a big giant dog that was about 80 pounds, I would say. I'm close to that weight. And I was told, a very reactive dog. And I was told that it would to steer clear of all dogs. And I said, I can do that. That's easy enough. And I was in an apartment building. And do you know how many corners there are in apartment buildings? This is in California, so everything is open. It's not like it's dark hallways, but it is hallways with blind corners, and at one point a blind staircase downward. And so as I was the first time I'm walking this dog, and I had no idea how reactive. When they said the dog is reactive, I had no idea how reactive. And I was exiting my apartment, and a woman came out from across the hall, and we started chatting a little bit. She said, oh, I know that dog. Yeah, it's very reactive. I said, oh, thanks for letting me know. It's my first time meeting the dog. And we were turning the corner to go downstairs, and the stairs were about 20 feet from no 16 feet from top to bottom, and maybe 20 stairs. And all concrete and steel. And goodness. And so about 16 feet vertical, about 20 stairs. And so I'm turning the corner, and I'm watching. I'm looking forward because I know the dog is reactive. So I'm looking forward. Is there a dog, where, just noticing where I need to move. And as I am doing this, the woman says to me, she's behind me, and she says, do you smell that skunk? I turn and I look backwards at her, and I start to imagine, like, am I smelling a skunk? Do I smell a skunk? What is she saying about a skunk? Because I also know that if I have a reactive dog, I really don't want to come upon a skunk. And so I turn around to look, and right in that moment of me turning around backwards, a small dog comes to the bottom of that staircase, and the reactive dog, I have a leash wrapped around my arm, and because I know it's reactive, so I'm just knowing that I want this dog close to me. This dog lunges off the top stair and lunges down the stairs, and it lunges kind of up first and out. And in that moment, my entire body weight hurls forward because I'm connected to that dog, and that dog just lunged. And so I'm flying literally. I see myself going horizontal. My head is going horizontal to the stairs. And I'm noticing that here is this moment where I've been asking the question about flying. And I had a moment where time stretched. And you've probably had this an experience for yourself when things are a little bit scary or very like close to death, whatever it is. Time does this interesting thing where it changes speed. And so everything started to slow down. And as I was flying, and I realized that I was flying horizontal, this dog had taken me horizontal off this top stair. And in that moment, I knew I have a choice right now. I can freak out. There are many different possibilities. I actually saw many different realities. I saw versions of me falling down the stairs face first and breaking my neck. I saw versions of me trying to catch myself and breaking my legs. I saw all kinds of versions of things. And I saw them all very, very quickly. And the version that I chose, I actively chose, I know I chose it. I noticed my preference, my choice is that not only do I land, but I land gracefully and I land perfectly healthy, vital, all things. I land softly. And so I pictured that. And I also noticed there was this small spot at the bottom of the stairs that I could just see my feet landing gracefully right there. I just kept seeing that one spot and my feet landing and the dog landing right in front of me. And keep in mind, this is, if you were to watch this from an outside perspective, this is a split second. But for me, this is an eternity. This is me choosing and deciding and knowing that what I say goes. And so I made the choice with my full being. I lined up my nervous system with it. Lined up my entire body with it. I lined up with anything that needed to happen. And I said, I don't know how, and it's not my job to know how my feet land in that spot. And gently, gracefully, softly, everything is fine. And what happened, I could feel, I just let my body do whatever needed to be done for that to be the case. And I felt my body flying. And then I felt my legs kick forward. And I felt it was almost like if I were to see myself, it seems like it would have looked like a Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon moment where the legs are like doing this through the air. And then I just felt myself go vertical right above that spot. And I felt myself land super gently. And when I landed, time sped up again, like boom, everything back up to speed. And in that little microsecond, I felt my nervous system, a little rush of adrenaline through my nervous system of like, oh my gosh, did I just do that? And like, wow, I know I did that. I know I did that. I made that choice and that happened. And then there was like a little spike of adrenaline and then a little bit of, well, of course that happened because that was my preference. And I honored my preference and I allowed myself to honor that preference. And so what's interesting about this story, the other two people who saw it, so the woman at the bottom of the stairs with her dog, the one that my dog was reacting to, the minute I landed, the minute reality sped back up, the dog in front of me perked back up again too, because the dog landed softly and the dog perked up and all of a sudden started to become reactive again to the small dog. And I asked her, I said, please leave. And she said, oh my God, that was amazing. Are you okay? And I said, please go. Because I couldn't hold the dog. It was so reactive. So she leaves. The woman comes running down from the top stair. And she said, oh my gosh, I've never seen anything like that before. That was insane. How did you do that? That was crazy. And I was like, I just knew I was going to land here. And so we talked for a couple moments and then she went to work and the dog and I went on a walk and it was such a normalcy about it that it wasn't even like, let's do a body check. Let's figure things out. Oh my God, let's relive that. It was more like, yep, that's exactly how you fly. It's the same as psychokinesis. And so this is the link back to doing a psychokinesis training and what it means for your team to do a psychokinesis training. So the elements of this story are that the nature of reality is not fixed and that this physical space is more malleable than you realize, that you have the power to affect the physical around you with your intention and with meaning. Now, keep in mind, in this moment, I had a lot of intention, right? I knew very clearly what I did not want, which was breaking my neck, breaking legs, all these things, hurt dog. I knew very clearly. But if I dwelled there for very long, the likelihood is that that would have happened. But I knew not to focus my energy there. I knew to focus my energy on the version I did want, which was landing softly. So I had a lot of intention and I had a lot of meaning behind it. I had just been thinking the last couple days about, I would love to be able to fly in my daydream. I can fly in my night dream. Why can't I fly in my daydream? It should be the same thing. And so the meaning was so present because I had set this desire, and this was the most logical way for it to happen, that I would have to fly. Because do you think I'm really going to jump off the edge of a balcony to prove to myself that I can fly? Likely not. But if I get hurled without my knowing across or down a flight of stairs, I'm going to take that moment to know for myself that I can fly. And you might have your own understanding of how this story played out, and there might be relevance to this story. You might be hearing this for a reason. But I want to talk about this link to psychokinesis and training. So if you are a leader of an organization, if you are a founder of a business, if you are a non-for-profit, a government agency, whatever you are, and you would like to have your team focus on an outcome and have them be successful in the most magical, synchronous, easiest, fastest, most efficient way, then there are some things to learn from telekinesis. Because when you sit in a room and you decide that you are going to attempt to affect physical matter with your intention, you will hear every storyline that you've ever had about why things are the way they are, why physical reality is the way it is. Are you powerful enough to do these things? Can you allow it for yourself? Are you worthy of it? Do other people get it and you don't? You're going to hear every belief system. And you don't have to wait for something like a crisis, like being dragged off of the top stair of a flight of stairs, to decide that you are going to choose a target, focus on it with your team, and see what happens, and treat it like an experiment. And this is really what I recommend: is every psychokinesis training is an experiment. Because if you are to focus on the outcome and only gauge your success by the outcome, then it's going to be hard for you to receive that outcome. There's little incremental belief steps that happen along the way. There's no coincidence that I was thinking about flying right before that happened, because I knew that I was ready for it. I knew that everything I had done leading up to that moment, the next logical step was for me to fly. And when you're doing psychokinesis training, the same thing happens, where you're bending a spoon or you're magnetizing needles or you're doing something, and all of a sudden you'll know it's about to happen. And you'll get a lock on it, and a little incremental change will happen. You'll notice something shift a little bit, and you'll be like, aha, aha, closer. And a lot of times this is what happens, is a little incremental in the psychokinesis trainings. And so what's really beneficial about doing psychokinesis trainings is that you don't have to wait for things to go badly before you decide to do something different, to believe something different, to try something different. And so it's when I do psychokinesis trainings with groups, it is not about the result you're getting. It is not about what happens. It's something that is much deeper than that. It's not about just moving something that's outside of yourself. And in fact, if you really understand the nature of reality, there is nothing outside of yourself. You're just having a conversation between you and you in the psychokinesis training. But it's not about that. It's not about trying to move a feather across a table or to bend a fork with your mind. It's not really about that. It's about discovering how many invisible limits you have accepted as real. So even as you're watching this video, notice, what did you come up against when you heard this story of me flying? Like, what was your story that happened? I know my experience. I know that I flew, but you have an interpretation. And so you might be thinking, that's amazing, I want to do that too. And you might be 100% knowing that you can fly. It might take you a little while. You might be believing it's going to take you time and energy and training to do it. You might be believing, well, she can do it, but I can't. She's special. Something about her is special. None of this is actually true. This physical reality really reacts, responds to who you are, not what you think, who you are. Who are you being? What do you believe about yourself? And so, for you to make some incremental bridges along the way, for you to bridge into the belief, whatever that is, that you could, whatever your desired outcome is in your business, you want to host a certain event, you want to double sales, you want to increase your reach 200%, you want to, whatever the business outcome is that you're focused on, that you don't need a crisis for you to focus on it. And possibly you might find out in a psychokinesis training, this is the other thing that happens, is that the thing that you're so focused on, you might be looking at it like it's a problem to solve. And that's why you're using it as a target. Now, think about this moment where I'm flying down the stairs. I knew there were potentials that I didn't want. I didn't see it as a problem that I just got launched off the top of a stair. At no point in that whole experience did I perceive there to be a problem that I needed to fix. At no point, because I'm eternal. If this is my moment that I transition into something else, I'm expanding. That could be the case. That's not a problem to me. If I were to, let's say, hurt myself some way, I have witnessed people healing bones overnight, in minutes. That's not a problem to me. I don't see broken bones as a problem. I also know that you can get around just fine on crutches, in a wheelchair, without the use of your limbs. I know people who don't use their eyesight to see. So I don't believe this physical body puts any limitations on me if it were to experience something different than it is now. So there's no problem there for me. And what else? What other things could people perceive as a problem here? The dog did something that I did not prefer. That happened. How often does that happen? That the things around you don't behave the way that you necessarily desire. Like, that's going to happen pretty much anywhere. I'm not going to let that trigger me into thinking that the dog was wrong for having this reactive behavior and think that it needs to be fixed or solved. So I did not perceive any problems. All I did was I said, wow, I am flying through the air head first. And then I realized I'm flying. I was just thinking about flying. Oh my gosh, I got my desire. This is a great thing, actually. So for me, there was no problem to be solved. I was just focused, and then I just focused on what's my grandest potential for how this ends. And I was like, I would just prefer to land gracefully and go about my business today and know that I flew today. And so if you're focused on some kind of target in your business, because let's say you need to make payroll, so you need to double sales, you're trying to solve a problem. The flip side is that if you have something that you want to share with the world and it lights you up to share it, that is not a problem. That is you expressing your unique gifts in the world, and you will see many more possibilities for what's available to you. But the minute you collapse it into solving a problem, solving a crisis, that slams a whole bunch of doors of what's possible. And so psychokinesis training will do two very important things. First, it will show you if you are trying to do something to prove something to yourself. Are you trying to bend that spoon so that you can prove to yourself you can do it? That's going to be a hard road. It's not going to be a very fun road either, by the way. If you know that anybody can bend a spoon and you're wondering what's the most fun shape this spoon wants to be in, now you're talking about potentials and possibilities in the field. Same thing goes for your business. If you're trying to do something because you think it's going to solve a problem that you have in your business, it collapses the potentials. Now, and I've said this earlier, I'm going to leave you with this thought. This link that I'm making between psychokinesis and flying, we have an extraordinary ability to use our belief system, our intentions, as a way to focus physical reality. So consciousness, which is fundamental, your awareness is your consciousness. You are possibly aware that you are playing this character. I'm playing this character, Stacey Murphy, right now. So your awareness, consciousness is focusing energy, which is moving all around us all the time. The space between you and me, it is not empty. It is full of things that can be detected with scientific equipment, but might look like it's empty space. It is not empty. It is full of all kinds of energy. So your awareness is moving that into form. And that's what you're doing in your psychokinesis trainings is you are allowing your awareness to decide what you would like to experience in physical world and then allowing the physical world to show you that. It's just you talking to you. And so all of physical reality is like that. It doesn't matter whether you're building a business, whether you're walking a dog, whether you are having a conversation with somebody. And so psychokinesis, it's not just about moving something that's outside of yourself. Because if you knew that you are consciousness and you are everywhere, there's nothing outside of you to move. You are the one that is moving. And the second thing that a training can help you do is not wait for a crisis in order to see what you're truly capable of. It's about discovering how many invisible limits you've accepted as real for yourself, and therefore reality must show you what you believe to be real. All right, I am Stacey Murphy. If this is exciting to you and you would like to do a training with your team, but with other entrepreneurs, I would love to host you. This is something that will change everything for you. And if this all sounds outlandish to you, but it still sounds fun, I highly recommend you reach out for your own training. All right, take care and post any comments in the section below. I would love to hear what's coming up for you as you're hearing this story. All right, take care, you guys. Have a great day.